Hare Rama, Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahams Parivrajagacharya Sattva Shishim Nivin Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Sri Sri Gaudidai Ki Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prasthaya Buddhalev Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vicharini Vishesha Shunyavadi Parshachate Satarni. Today is the last day of our seminar on psychology from the transcendental point of view. And in this concluding session, we will look at the psychology of Bhakti Yoga. So I want to begin by reading a section of a purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 10, verse 11. Srila Prabhupada writes, therefore Sri Ramanuja Swami, in his book Vedanta Tattva Sara, has described that the merging of the soul means that after separating himself from the material body, made of 8 elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, false ego, mind, and intelligence, the individual soul engages himself in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His eternal form. The material cause of the material elements absorbs the material body, and the spiritual soul assumes its original position. So, what this is in essence is Srila Prabhupada's summary of the system of psychology which Ramanujacharya has given. So I am presenting this system in more detail, and I have to say that a lot of this information that I will present I have gotten from a book by an Indian scholar who is comparing different systems of psychology found in traditional India. But the nice thing is that this scholar has himself stated that of all the different systems, Ramanujacharya's is the best. So this scholar, whose name is Raghunath Safaya, he may not, I don't know who he is, he may not be what we would consider a devotee, but at least he appreciates one of the great Vaishnavacharyas. So, let us begin. First we should say that what is presented by Ramanujacharya is applicable. Of course, he is the Acharya of one disciplic succession, the Lakshmi Sampradaya, but the points that he is making are certainly applicable to our understanding of devotional service, so there's no conflict.
Ramanuja s Acharyou Šri Sampradaji, ale každopádně to, co on předkládá, tak se dá použít v našem pochopení ordenaství, které se v tom konfliktu.
So the foundation of the psychology of devotional service is, of course, bhakti, which is the mood of pure devotion.
Základem psychologie ordenaství je samozřejmě bhakti, nebo nálada čisté ordenaství.
So, from a psychological point of view, if we want to say what bhakti is, just looking at it psychologically, it is cultivation of emotions. And what are emotions? Emotions are the glue of the mind's attachment. See, we know that the mind becomes attached. So the glue, the actual sticky stuff by which the mind becomes attached to something is emotions. So, as we know from Gita and other Vedic scriptures, the mind's attachment, and we were talking about this yesterday, the mind's attachment determines liberation or bondage. Yesterday we heard that if the mind is attached to the Lord, to hearing about the topics of the Lord, then that is the consciousness of liberation. And if the mind is attached to the modes of material nature, that's the consciousness of bondage. So obviously then, bhakti yoga is intended to stimulate pure emotions of attachment to Krishna. Now, in the language of psychology, emotional life is called the affective side of the mind. It's from this that we get the word affection. Like we say two people are affectionate. So there is this affective side or emotional side of the mind. The word affective means an aroused state of emotions. So besides this affective side, I've already said this, there is the cognitive side, which means the thinking side, and the conative side, which is the active side. Now, this is modern terminology, of course, but we know the same thing from Srila Prabhupada's books. In fact, Srila Prabhupada very clearly states that the psychology of the mind means thinking, feeling, and willing. So, what is very useful for us in understanding the psychology, of Bhakti Yoga, or actually all human psychology, what is very useful is that Ramanujacharya has explained that of these three, the thinking, the feeling, and the willing, it's the feeling that is central. I mean, it is central. Feeling comes in between thinking and willing. And it's the center of the mind's activities is feeling.
Pro nás důležité pro pochopení psychologii, že Raman že vysvětluje, že z těchto tří je cítění uprostřed a je to vlastně středem činností myslí.
So both thinking and willing are subservient to feeling, emotions.
Myšlení a chtění jsou podřízené tomu cítění emocí.
Now, in the Mayavadi philosophy of Shankaracharya, all states of mind, that means all thinking, feeling, and willing, are crazy, are psychotic.
V mayavadské filozofii Shankaracharya jsou všechny to stavy mysli, jakéhokoliv cítění, myšlení, chtění, jsou šílené, psychotické.
That's because in this philosophy of illusion, then whatever we may think about or feel or want to do, it has absolutely no reality.
Filozofie iluze, cokoliv přemýšlíme nebo cítíme nebo chceme, tak není žádná absolutní realita.
So I was telling you this morning in the Bhagavatam class, that in Mayavadi philosophy there is a total disruption between the affairs of this world and transcendence. There's actually no logical connection whatsoever. So this is totally against all Vaishnava philosophy. Because the Vaishnavas understand that this world has a beginning. And that beginning is the Supreme Lord. Aham savasya prabhavo matak sarvam pradartate. Krishna himself says that everything is coming from me. So although, yes, this world is temporary, life in this world cannot make us happy, that's all true. Still there must be a logical connection between this world and reality. In the Sanskrit language, in the Gita for example, we find that the word used for logic is hetu. And the word hetu means cause. So logical thought is always going to a cause of something. You know, like for example, police detectives, they use logic as well as the evidence. They put the evidence together, and then with their minds they try to come to a logical understanding of how the crime was committed. And what does that mean? That means they're seeking by their thought processes to uncover who is the cause of the crime. So all logic works like that. Mm-hmm. So in the Mayavadi philosophy, there's no logic to this world. Because it is not an energy of Brahman. It was not caused by Brahman. It's just a mistake. It's just an illusion. Mm-hmm. And has no substance. So therefore Shankaracharya says all of that we're thinking and feeling and willing is just madness. It's just meaningless. But Ramanujacharya, he rejects this position. So his argument is that the individual soul, being part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, therefore by that connection there always is some substance to what the individual soul is thinking, feeling or willing.
Argument je, že individuální duše je částí nejvyšší duše a proto ve všem jejím myšlení, cítění, chtění je nějaká podstata.
In the Shastras, the Supreme Lord, he is called Gyata, the knower. He is called Bhokta, the experiencer or the enjoyer. The one who feels, in other words. And he is called Karta, the doer. And the Jiva is, according to Ramanujacharya's philosophy, Prakara. Prakara means he's a category or a part and parcel within the existence of the Supreme. Therefore, the living entity is also Gyata, Bhokta and Karta. Now there's a letter from Srila Prabhupada written in 1969 to one Mrs. Klein. And there Srila Prabhupada also states that our thinking, feeling and willing originates within the supreme and original thinking, feeling and willing of Krishna. So now let's look at these different functions of the mind as they're explained by Ramanujacharya. So, taking first the thinking function. This has two basic parts. Anubhava and smriti. Anubhava means observation. The mind is contemplating. Perceiving. And smriti means remember. So this is basically how we're thinking. We're thinking in the present about something that's before us, or we're thinking about things in the past. So then observation, this anubhava, observation, that also has two divisions. The mind observes a thing by pratyaksha, direct perception, and also by anuman, or inference. So what is this inferential observation? Suppose I'm sitting in my room and I hear a voice calling to me through the door. And I recognize the voice. This is Danavir Maharaj. So then in my mind's, we in English we say, in the mind's eye. You know? This is the English expression. In the mind's eye, I will see Danavir Maharaj out in the hall in the other side of the door. I don't see him with these eyes. But by logic, if I hear his voice coming just from the other side of the door, I think he must be there. Now it could be that Bhakta Dushan is out there with a tape player of Danavir Maharaj's voice, and he's just holding the tape player to my door and playing the sound.
by to mohlo být tak, že pak ta duša tam má magnetofon s nahraným hlasem a navíra Maharaj, že jenom mě to pouští do dveře.
You see, that could be, but we hope not.
To by tak mohlo být, ale doufám, že to tak není.
So Pratyaksha and Anuman, these are the two ways of observing a thing. Now there is also a third level of observation, which is a very special thing. And this is called Divya Pratyaksha, divine perception. Now, there's a thing you all know, intuition. So, intuition is a form of this Divya Pratyaksha. Now, at our level, intuition may be imperfect. But you know what intuition is. It means you don't really, there's nothing that you can see, and there's also nothing logical, no logical reason why you should, for example, suspect that here is a person who you can't trust. You know, there's a person here who wants to do some dealings with you, and you just have this feeling, I can't trust this person, I have to be very careful. Although by what you see, and also by what you're hearing, the logic of what he's saying, there's nothing suspicious.
Že intuice znamená, nevidíte nic přímo, ani nejsou přímo logické důvody pro něco, ale máte prostě podezření. Například s někým jednáte a podezíráte ho, že není důvěryhodný, i když prostě nic nevidíte přímo, ani neříká nic, co by to dokazovalo, ale máte takový pocit.
Now, when we're influenced by the modes of nature, we may be mistaken in our intuition. But when one comes out of that influence, then intuition is a direct revelation from Paramatma. So Ramanujacharya says the way to develop this Divya Pratyaksha, grace. And we attract divine grace by regular acts of worship and remembrance of the Lord. Alright, so that is about the cognitive or thinking side of the mind. Now going over to the willing side. So that is based on the living entity's minute free will. Free will is an attribute of the Supreme Lord. And we share that as His parts and parcels to a small degree. So you see, there is the Lord's will and there's our will. So here's a very nice formula for liberation. Or on the other side, for bondage. If our will meshes together with the Lord's will, in other words, if we do as He desires, then that is liberation. So that means our activities, which is the expression of our will, what we do, should be always guided by the instructions of Shastra, Sadhu and Guru. But if our activities defy the order of the Lord, then of course they will be judged by the law of karma. Alright, so this was thinking and willing. Now, above them both is the affective aspect of the mind, the feeling side.
A nad ním je afektivní aspekt mysli neboli cítění.
So Ramanujacharya teaches that if you look at emotions, look at the healthy ones, healthy emotions, they all progress up to love.
Ramanujacharya říká, se podíváme na zdravé emoce, tak všechny nakonec prochodí v lásce.
So he says that what Bhakti Yoga does is that it redirects the jiva's natural love from material things to the Supreme Lord.
On říká, že co dělá Bhakti Yoga je, že přesměrovává přirozenou lásku živých bytostí od hmotných věcí k nejvyššímu Pánu.
So, because this emotional state is influencing the thinking and the willing state, therefore the purifying effect of bhakti on our emotions is most important for the general health of the mind or the general health of consciousness. At the same time, Bhakti Yoga has something special to offer to the thinking and also willing side. So Bhakti Yoga is, of course, it is centered on purifying the emotions, but it also deals with thinking and acting. So looking at what Bhakti does for the emotions, Bhakti Yoga instills in the mind a longing, an emotional longing for the Lord and for nothing else. And along with this, there are other very nice emotional states, which are natural to this longing, this loving desire to achieve Krishna. So one of these assistant emotional states, you might say, is called kalyana, which is a well-wishing attitude towards all living entities. And then there's daya. Daya means mercy or compassion. Ahimsa, non-violence. And anavasada, which means joyfulness. So these are all ideal and healthy states of emotional life. Now to the thinking side of the mind, Bhakti Yoga brings viveka. Viveka means right discrimination. I think you all know the term Shastra Chakshush. To see through the eyes of Scripture. So when Scripture becomes our eyes, then we get this viveka, discrimination. And another thing that bhakti contributes to the thinking mind is arjavam. Arjava means honesty. One of the defects of the living entity is what? Cheating propensity. So Bhakti Yoga rids us of that wrong line of thinking. And what does Bhakti bring to this willing or conative side, active side? One thing is kriya. Kriya means a body of activities which are of course, they are activities all in relationship to the Lord. So these are the transcendental activities. And abhyasa means spiritual practices. Like our chanting of the holy name. And then also dana. Dana means a work that is for the benefit of all living entities. So you'll find these three things mentioned in other language very often by Srila Prabhupada. We have our regulated work, daily regulated duties. We have our spiritual practices, and we have our missionary work. And then there's something that bhakti gives to all three sides of the mind. And this is called prapati, which means complete surrender to the Lord. So, it means thinking, our thinking processes are surrendered to Krishna, our emotional life is surrendered to Krishna, and our activities are surrendered to Krishna. So, that is, in brief, the overview of Ramanuja's psychology of Bhakti Yoga. Now, I have some more things here which are of more philosophical nature. About this is Ramanujacharya's explanation of some of the things that we were talking about in previous seminars. But what I think I'll do now is I think I will open up for questions because it's almost 11:30. And if someone asks the right question, then I may speak on these things. So let's see if you have any questions. Yes.
How to find the proper balance between thinking, feeling, and willing in Bhakti Yoga?
Well, as I said, it's already out of balance because the feeling has prominence over the thinking and the willing side. And I think that this is very important for us to understand about human. Well, it's not just human nature; it's actually the nature of the self. And this is, you see, this is confirmed. I mentioned in an earlier seminar. Look in Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion introduction, what he writes there about rasa. So there it's very plain that people work on the basis of rasa. Everything they do is motivated by that. So therefore, bhakti focuses especially on this. And so there's no question of balance. We are basically emotional creatures. And so to be successful in spiritual life, these emotions have to be purified more than anything else. Look at it this way. What is Jnana Yoga all about? Jnana Yoga focuses on the cognitive side of the mind.
Dhyana yoga ta se soustředí na tu kognitivní stránku.
And karma yoga focuses on the conative or active, willing side of the mind.
Karma yoga se zaměřuje na tu stránku chtění nebo konání.
And these processes are never fully successful.
Tyto procesy nikdy nejsou plně úspěšné.
Because they more or less ignore, they don't know how to deal with emotions.
Protože nevědí, jak správně nakládat s emocemi.
So therefore the karmis and the jnanis are always troubled by desires.
Proto karmy, jnany jsou pořád obtěžovány touhami.
The jnanis try to suppress their desires. The karmis on the other side, they try to satisfy their desires, but by materialistic means.
Jnany se snaží potlačit touhy a karmy se snaží uspokojovat touhy materialistickými prostředky.
You see? So these yoga systems are imperfect.
Takže tyto jogové systémy jsou nedokonalé.
So bhakti as this scholar, Mr. Safaya, Raghunath Safaya, he says of all the different advocates of different psychologies, Ramanuja, he says, is the most sensible because he's admitting that we're emotional creatures.
Jak říkal ten učenec, pan Safaya, tak ze všech psychologů je Ramanuja nejrozumější a nejcitlivější, protože říká, že jsme emocionální bytosti.
Anything else? Yes?
Na začátku oddaného života jsou emoce kontaminované materiální vlastně prostě my máme emoce na základě rasy materiální energie. A když je chceme dát Krišnovi, tak je tam blok, protože tam není ta rasa dostat ke Krišnovi. Tak prostě nemáme vůbec sílu Krišnovi ty emoce dávat, protože tam není takovou
Že nemáme zkušenost. Že na začátku oddané máme emoce, ještě jsme plní emocí k hmotným věcem, ale nemáme chuť ve vztahu ke Krišnovi. Takže je těžké jako to prostě očišťovat a rozvědět. Je nějaká hnací síla, abychom dali svoje emoce Krišnovi. In the beginning of our devotional life, we are used to have emotions channeled to material things, and we have no rasa in connection with Krishna. So, what kind of force should be there which will make us develop this rasa with Krishna?
There's the holy name, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, particularly in Sankirtan. This process is churning the spiritual emotions which are dormant in the heart. The chanting of Hare Krishna brings out this spiritual rasa. So in the beginning, but the middle and also the end of devotional service, chanting is foremost. The holy name of Krishna is Krishna himself. And he is Akila Rasamrita Murti. This means he is the very form of complete rasa. Prabhupada explains in one place that the difference between spiritual rasa and material rasa is that spiritual rasa is akila, complete, and material rasa is kila, or incomplete. So by chanting we are in direct contact with Krishna, and being in direct contact with Krishna means we're in complete rasa.
To nemohou být úplně vlastní.
Yes?
Sentimentalita je také částí emocí. Sentimentalism is the part of emotions.
Well, sentiment, it has... This is a word that has a meaning and then it has connotation.
Sentiment je slovo, které má svůj význam a potom svůj takový vedlejší význam.
The simple dictionary meaning of sentimental, is similar to emotional.
Základní slovníkový význam sentimentální je něco podobného jako emocionální.
But there's a connotation to the word that a sentimental person is a person who is emotional in a naive way.
To sebou nese ten nádech, že sentimentální osoba je emocionální naivním způsobem.
That means that person can be manipulated by the emotions.
To znamená, že se nechá taková osoba emocemi manipulovat.
So that means that person is not in knowledge as to what is an appropriate object of emotions.
To znamená, že nemá poznání, co je správným objektem emocí.
So we're all emotional beings primarily.
My jsme v první řadě všichni emocionální bytosti.
But we should not be misled by our emotions.
Neměli bychom se nechat svést svými emocemi.
And this is a question of purification.
A to je otázka očištění.
So a sentimental person, simply speaking, is a person whose emotional life is not yet pure.
Sentimentální osoba je osoba, jejíž emocionální život ještě není čistý.
Some other thing? Yes?
Že jste mluvil o touhách, které přicházejí, aniž bychom nechtěli jako bubliny někde ze dna, jak tohle můžeme ovlivnit. You spoke about hidden desires that come out of this subconscious as a bubble, so all of a sudden we don't know about them and we don't want them, so how can we influence this?
Well, I explained that what we must do, because we don't know all these hidden emotions in detail, but we know overall that these are not emotions, I mean desires. We don't know all these hidden desires in detail, but we do know that in general, material desire is in opposition to devotional service.
Já jsem vysvětloval, že neznáme ty touhy dopodrobná, ale obecně víme, že hmotná touha je v opozici k oddanosti.
So a material desire is a desire that is pushing us to put ourselves in Krishna's position.
Hmotná touha je taková, která nás tlačí k tomu, abychom se stavili do Krishnova postavení.
Instead of being Krishna's servant, one who's impelled by material desires is trying to himself be Krishna, the supreme enjoyer, controller.
Ten byl pozaný hmotnými touhami, tak místo aby byl Krishnův služebník, tak se chce stavit do pozice toho, kdo si užívá.
So, if we understand this, then we can deal with all of these desires. And the way to deal with them is to be very strictly engaged in the process of purification of desire. And I explained that there are two sides to this. There's the positive side of opening, it means opening the door back home, back to Godhead. with Krishna consciousness.
Zaplavování vědomím Krishny.
And then on the other side, there's the negative process of closing the door to further material activity.
Na druhé straně je negativní proces zavírání dveří k dalším hmotným činnostem.
Giving up materialistic sense gratification.
Znamená vzdávání se materialistického uspokojení smyslu.
So if we're strict about this, then we can keep ourselves safe from these hidden material desires.
Takže když jsme v tomhle striktní, tak se udržujeme v bezpečí proti těmto skrytým touhám materiálním.
Yes?
Jestli dochází k očištění těch skrytých tužeb tam někde vnitru, aniž bychom je museli vidět, anebo se musíme nejdřív objevit a pak je očistíme. In this connection, is it necessary that these hidden desires come out and then we purify them, or can they be purified even without our seeing them?
Yes, they can be purified without even your seeing them. And in fact, there is an advanced stage, which Srila Prabhupada writes about, where we can see our desires. You can see all of your desires. But by the time you reach that stage, then your desires are purified. That's when you're actually seeing your real identity. So what material desires are, what are they? They're simply us. They're simply us, but covered by ignorance. So the real us is an eternal servant of Krishna. And what we really want is to serve and love Krishna. When that identity is covered by ignorance, then that original desire is perverted. Actually, material desire cannot be satisfied. The only object that can satisfy desire is Krishna. But in material consciousness, we've turned away from Krishna. So that means we have desires that cannot be satisfied. That means also that we don't know what we want. This is material consciousness. That we're pushed by wants and needs. But we don't know for what. There's just this vague feeling that I'm not satisfied and I have to do something. So you see, that's why you actually can never see clearly what material desires are. Because by definition, they're ignorance. By definition, they're in darkness. You understand what I'm saying? You see? The only way that you can deal with material desire is to turn on the light of spiritual knowledge. Remove the darkness. And then there won't be a material desire there anymore. You'll just see the original spiritual desire. So we just need to know in principle that these material desires, because they're separated from Krishna by ignorance, therefore they're inauspicious. We should not act upon them.
principu bychom měli vidět, že hmotné touhy jsou oddělené od Krišny, jsou nepříznivé, ale měli bychom to být jedno.
And the way to solve the problem of material desire is, as quickly as possible, we have to revive our spiritual desires.
Způsob, jak vyřešit hmotné touhy, co nejrychleji obnovit své duchovní touhy.
Anything else? Yes?
Přikázání je nápomocná intuice, kterou Dani používá, existuje způsob, jak ji rozvíjet. It's very helpful for a devotee engaged in preaching to use his intuition. Is there a way how to cultivate this intuition?
Yeah, well, I mentioned how Ramanujacharya says it should be done. Intuition develops by divine grace.
Jsem se zmínil, ale Ramanujacharya říká, že by se to mělo dělat, a intuice se rozvíjí božskou milostí.
And we attract divine grace to ourselves by regulated devotional service and by always remembering Krishna. So this is, this cultivation is within standard devotional service. It is a result of purification. Actually, this intuition is coming from Paramatma. So as we clear our relationship with Paramatma, then that gift of intuition will come stronger and stronger. The way Ramanujacharya explains it, that what we know to be spiritual realization, where, at the final stage one is actually able to see the spiritual world and Krishna's Leela, that this is the culmination of that intuition. This is where it finally blooms. Yes?
Just if you can elaborate to suggesting that you mentioned the relationship of the three Purushas with the material world, and then when we understand this, and everything about ourselves will be clear to us. I really didn't get a clear picture, so summarize or something. Že Maharaj tady říkal, jak když pochopíme vztah tří Purušů k hmotnému světu, tak že pak bude nám jasné naše vlastní postavení, a já ještě nemám nějaký jasný obrázek, jestli by to mohl to nebo vysvětlit.
Yeah, well, what I've been trying to explain is that in looking at ourselves, as these questions were just about that how desire is coming out of some subconscious state. Flowing into the conscious mind, thinking mind. And there we meditate on them. And from this meditation, then action must follow. So there are three states then. This subconscious state, this thinking state, and this acting state. So Lord Mahavishnu, he is actually the Lord of this subconscious or susupti platform. And we are, even now, we're in the middle of this creation, but we still, at the core of our consciousness, are connected to Mahavishnu. You may have read in Srila Prabhupada's books where he writes that this world is just a dream of Mahavishnu. And we are in that dream. That means, in a sense, we are still with him. He's sleeping in Yoga Nidra, and we're sleeping with him, but in the Tamoguna. And what he's dreaming, we're thinking is real.
to, co on sní, tak my si myslíme, že je skutečné.
And that's why the Upanishads say every night we return to him.
To Upanishady říkají, že každou noc se k němu vracíme.
In that state of subconscious unawareness, susupti. And that state is the root of our desires. Because, like I was answering to Mataji, you see, where the soul, when it's covered by this layer of darkness, that's where material desire is appearing. Then the next Purusha avatar, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, he's manifesting the subtle existence. Find that specifically stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita and other places. Prabhupada even uses the phrase, the subtle Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha is the name of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So there's a vast supercosmic mind known as the Mahatattva. Mm-hmm. And that's also said to be the subtle universal form, the model of all universal forms. So it's here at this stage that the desires of the subconscious are appearing in thought forms.